thank you all for coming. This is the last in a series of 4 events. And there's some more seats up in the front if you want to come. But we really appreciate the turnout, the interest. And as you may be aware, all of these programs have been recorded, and the first 2 are now available on YouTube, on the website. The third one hasn't yet been transferred from the camera to the YouTube because we found that we couldn't marry a Mac to a PC, and we need to have somebody to return to town to be able to achieve that matchmaking event. But we'll hope to have we'll have the last one done tonight, and in the next couple of days, or at least by early next week, we will have all 4 shows up on YouTube, and I will post links various places and send it around to the various sponsoring organizations to let them share it with their members and their organization. So we've listed all the sponsors, various places. I won't repeat them all tonight, but you can see it on the posters and elsewhere. This is the last event. We're going to have the art exhibit up through the end of the month, take it down on the 30th. And Pamela Lowell has her osprey paintings on the west wall. It's obviously the west wall where all the sun is coming from at the moment. But over on the east wall are the prints of paintings by Barry Van Dusen from his book Finding Sanctuary, plus a couple of paintings, prints of paintings by my brother who visited Westport often and helped repair osprey nests, and not as much as Dick Manchester did, but he tried. And so I had thought we would have a coup in our audience tonight of getting Alan Poole and Rob Beauregard here, but their schedules got screwed up, and so they aren't going to make it. But probably many of you know Alan Poole, who's been looking after our osprey ears for 50 years. And Rob Beauregard came about 15 years ago and worked with us to put transmitters on 4 or 5 osprey every year to track where they went when they were around here, where they went fishing, where they went in migration, and some of them got their heads turned around the wrong way and headed north rather than south, and he managed to go up and recover a couple of transmitters from birds that never made it south. But anyway, we found out interesting things, and I think that's still available online. So if you look up Beauregard, Bierrergard, rather unusual name that shows up pretty quickly on a Google search, I would think. But anyway, he's written books about that, and all kind of around the osprey of Martha's Vineyard and of the Westport River. But those are the things that attracted our speaker tonight. How many summers have you been? Just one, only one. So you've been going out with Matt Zucconi, who's here as the man who is monitoring the osprey last year and again this year. And if you live near the river, you know the osprey are back. We've got a pair. Betty and I have a nest in the Westport River that we monitor every morning and night. And we had to wait for about 2 weeks for the female to show up, and the male was probably getting more impatient than we were. But finally the female did show up, and they went to work and fixed up the nest, and now they're just kind of sitting around trying to figure out what to do next. We're hoping very soon to see her sitting down on the eggs, and then we'll start counting our 35 days until they hatch. So we do that religiously and hope that the rest of you will enjoy that. And Pam is going to tell us about the inspiration and motivation and everything else that she got out of spending a summer with Osprey in the Westport River.
Thank you, David.
All yours. Here's that.
Okay.
Okay. I'll-
Well, how do I follow that intro? All those famous names mentioned, the heroes we did. Who didn't we mention though? There was somebody really famous who did a lot of early work. There you go, Gil Fernandez. So he's, I guess, our godfather
And
or
his
something.
wife.
And his wife, Jo. Yep. So anyway, thank you everyone for coming. A lot of nice familiar faces. People who are even in the book are here, which is really cool. So you've got lots of choices. I think there was the daffodil thing over at DNRT tonight, so I appreciate that you came out and wanted to hear my story and the Osprey story as much as I can do. Let's see. I want to thank David Cole for letting me do this presentation. He put a lot of work. I remember talking with him about this months ago, and Betty as well did a lot of work putting this together this month, and I was sad to not be here. For the whole month we were away, so if you didn't see me, that's why. Let's see. There's a lot I want to share with you tonight. We're going to go over some banding. We're going to talk about Translocation Project. And we'll also do a mock interview tonight with someone who has been impacted by climate change. So I'll have some volunteers from the audience. Hopefully you're all, going to be more energetic than I am right now. And that's the cover of my book, based on my experiences, as David said. So I'm going to ask you to hold questions to the end, though, because we only have an hour, and I will leave time at the end for questions. So first, and Gina's already seen this presentation. Actually, Gina, it's the same one. So first, a word from our sponsors. Everyone should recognize that sound if you're in the audience and love ospreys. So I want to start out by telling you a little bit about my journey. I went to school at Rutgers University, and I was an art education and a special education major. I worked, this was my first job, if you can see that, there's my little baby face right there. I know I look the same. And change that all. And these were kids that we worked with from inner city DC, very traumatized youth. And after a year or two of teaching, I decided that I was really more interested in helping on an interpersonal level and learning about their families. So I went back to school for my master's in social work. And I've been a social worker therapist ever since. So I graduated in 1980 from Rutgers with a teaching degree, and then I graduated in 1984 with my MSW. So that's a long time, and I've been a social worker ever since. This is me doing some training in trauma with an agency that I work for, a not-for-profit agency. We used to do some role plays with how do you deal with kids who have been traumatized. So anybody, when I say the word trauma or traumatized, does anything come to mind for any of you? What do you think I'm meaning by what sort of people might I treat in my practice, which I am still working, by the way? Any ideas? Trauma? Abuse, yeah. Yeah. War can be trauma. I haven't I haven't personally treated many war victims. Well, PTSD from
PTSD.
some veterans, for sure. Yes, I have worked with veterans. So trauma, it changes brain chemistry. It's something that's life-threatening or deeply distressing. So that's just something for you to know about me. That's the lens that I come to this project with. As my friend Karen, who's here, says, she calls me a citizen scientist. I kind of like that. Because that kind of depicts, because I'm not really a scientist, but I learned a lot about ospreys and about the scientific process. So let's see what else. Next we go. So here is, you might recognize this guy, he's in the audience. You'll see me on my first outing with Matt. I don't know if he remembers me taking this selfie, but he was the captain of the boat that summer. He was in charge of scheduling and data collection and monitoring the 100 or so nests that we have on the Westport River. We are on the boat, the Lucky Me, which David generously donated to the project. Well, actually, Betty, I guess, was the one who won the boat. And in minutes, I look very happy now and joyous. But in just a few minutes, I'm going to be climbing a 12-foot high ladder. And I wasn't very joyous when I was doing that. I have to say, I was pretty scared. So here we are. If you can see us. Okay. Whoops. Okay. Basically, what I did was sign up for 3-hour volunteer shifts, and Matt will be telling you a little bit about that at the end of the presentation, how you can sign up for those if you're interested. It was the most fun, probably one of the top 10 experiences in my life. I loved it. So we would go out on the river. We would usually check maybe 10 or 15 nests at a time, something like that, either on the west or the east branch. In the early spring, volunteers make repairs to the platforms. And then when I started in May, what we did was we would, again, climb up the ladders. We would check to see if there were any eggs in the nest. Then eventually we would see if there were any chicks, and we would be writing all this down and collecting that data for the project. And you'll hear more about that project in a few minutes. So let's see. That's kind of what it's like out there. It's pretty peaceful. There's our friend. They're always there, just kind of flying overhead. It's really peaceful and gorgeous. Oop. Okay, here's Matt and Phil. Phil was, probably people know Phil if you're from Westport. This kind of gives you an idea of how tall those ladders were. And I'm 65. I was always afraid of heights, always, my whole entire life. And this was it was unstable, like the ladders were in water. And I remember the first, I don't know if Matt remembers this or not, so I'm gonna be telling tales on Matt the whole night. Matt's doing whatever he's doing, and it's time for me to go up, and I'm looking up at the ladder, and he's like, well, you might as well, just get your feet wet on a tall one, And I'm like, well, are you gonna hold it for me or what? What's going on? Am I gonna fall? I was petrified, but I did it because I wanted to really do this project. So let's see, what else? Also, part of the problem is, it's not really a problem, but part of the challenge is that you have to go fast because you don't want to stress the birds. The birds get stressed out with just us being there, just us driving the boat past them. It makes them nervous. They know the boat, they know when we're coming, they know we're going to do something to them. So that's the other sort of thing in the back of your mind all the time, that you're not, you can't just like la-di-da go up these ladders. You have to kind of do your thing, go up and get down. And if you're me, you're also taking pictures. So it's a lot. Okay, this is a little painting that I did. So throughout the book, You'll see, and throughout my presentation, little sketches that I did throughout the summer. I was really inspired to start sketching some of the photographs that I was taking. This is a map, an actual map that they use. And these little numbers here, I guess you can see it a little bit easier now that the sun's going down a little bit. Just kind of marks where some of the nests are. I didn't mark all of them. Here's some photographs of some eggs and nesting materials. You might find some corn cobs or some shells or fish, all kinds of stuff. This one I call Room with a View. This was just spectacular. You know, you're just overlooking the whole marsh is just laid out in front of you. You don't often get that view when you're in a kayak, which is where I usually would go to the marshes. So I want to read you just a little bit, a passage, very short, of what I wrote about the first time I saw those eggs in a nest. But back to those eggs, my God, those eggs. Small, about the size of extra large chicken eggs. But that's where the comparison ends. Like French vanilla ice cream with melted milk chocolate morsels and dark reddish brown cinnamon swirls. If you've ever done a wax batik or made a tie-dye t-shirt, the patterns are like that. Some of the splotches are shaped like small continents, a view of the earth. If you were flying far above, maybe a bird soaring overhead, like what they might see. So I'd never seen an osprey egg before, and they're really quite beautiful as well. So here's just some more photographs that I took, and a lot of you probably know these facts, but some of you might not. So it takes an osprey about a week to lay their eggs every other day. 1 egg or 4 are rarer. There's usually about 3 eggs, although we did have quite a few nests with 4, and I don't know what you're seeing this time, Matt. Are you seeing more 3 or more 4, or kind of combination?
A lot more 3.
A lot more 3 this year, okay. So from laying to hatching takes about 5 weeks, and it's the female who spends her time incubating them. So have any of you ever walked on a salt marsh before? Yeah, quite a few, like half the audience. Has anyone ever walked on a salt marsh in their bare feet before?
Yeah.
Oh, one other person, all right. Yeah, what was that like? How was that for you?
Very mucky.
Very
I sunk
mucky.
into my knees.
Yeah, it's slippery, and I'll read a little passage later on about, and you can tell me if that was your experience too. It's something. So if it's low tide like this, it's not so bad. But when it's high tide or higher, it's not so great. And this wasn't low tide, but it was lower than a high tide. So it's just a little tip. Always wear your boots if you can. Here's some things they keep in the boat. I always thought that was kind of interesting. Boats are interesting anyway because they you have to very small space that you have to try to fit everything in. So there's some oars in case we get stuck in the sand. There's this long, so this, I don't know if you can see it, but this thing here is a long pole with like a mirror attached to the end, like a convex mirror. And they would use that, climb maybe halfway up the ladder. If the birds were being aggressive, you would kind of peek in. But they didn't use it. I never saw you guys use it, but it's in there. Let's see, what else? So during the fall of 2022, I started to paint large watercolors of ospreys, which is some of them you'll see on the wall over there, and I began to donate them to nature organizations as a way of giving back. I thought that would be a good way to raise money for Mass Audubon, DNRT, and some of the organizations around here. And after having a little bit of success with that, I decided to enter one of the paintings into an international juried exhibit out on Cape Cod. So this was the painting that was juried in. There were a lot of people from all over the world, and they accepted my painting, which kind of shocked me. But the bird there is from the cover of the book. And why I'm showing you this is that we had to think about, what did we want to say? All the artists got a chance to say 2 or 3 minute talk. And the exhibit was In Tandem. That was the name of it. So they wanted us to address 2 things, 2 or more things, working together with a desired result. So I thought, well, let me talk about osprey and osprey going extinct, and how people came together, volunteers, scientists, policymakers, to help bring the osprey and other birds back after DDT and other herbicides, pesticides almost wiped them out. So this is what I read. I'm not going to read you the whole thing. You can read it. And I'm sure a lot of you are aware of this fact, that in 1940 there were 1,000, probably more than that, breeding pairs. I don't think they had accurate counts back then. But because of those spraying of pesticides, the population plummeted to only 11 pair in all of Massachusetts. That's pretty shocking, especially living in this area now and seeing the proliferation of ospreys, that they got down to that tiny, tiny amount. So I read this, and the audience at the Cape Cod Museum were like, oh, like, I guess a lot of people didn't know that. And for me, it was kind of a turning point of like, can I use my art and my voice to talk about something a little bit different? Can it have a little bit of a deeper meaning for people, and educate and make people aware? So that kind of happened that night. So here is our famous Gina. She's here tonight. She oversees the Mass Audubon South Coast Osprey Project at Allen's Pond. She's been doing that for, I have the past 17 years, but maybe now it's 18 years. I don't know, Gina. It's long. She also helped me a lot in the fact-checking of the book. She read draft after draft and really helped with a lot. So, so I would really always want to acknowledge and thank her. Here's a little watercolor I did of the lucky me. Here is a photo of the first chick. And I guess now with webcams, a lot of people can see chicks in nests, which I think is really cool for folks who follow that sort of thing. There's webcams now. Lloyd Center has a new webcam, which is really neat for our area. But it is pretty spectacular to see one in person as well. So how many people have seen osprey chicks in person? Yeah, quite a few people here. You guys all know this stuff already, but you still came. Thank you for coming. It's great. It's great. It was remarkable. I think you would agree it's pretty remarkable. So here's another illustration for the book. I could play this clip about 1 million times. Yeah, you can see it okay. There they are. Anybody want to see it again? I know, right? They're just so adorable. Let's see if I can get it. I can't wait. I'm going to be seeing them again in another, I don't know, 6 weeks, something like that. Yes. It's another illustration. A lot of times osprey will toss out the shell. That's another thing that I learned, among many other facts. And also that indigenous people can keep things like feathers and eggshells, whereas we, as non-indigenous people, unless there are indigenous people in the audience, cannot. So all parts of our wild ospreys and other wild birds are federally protected by law. So think about that if you're thinking about taking a feather. This This is Deborah Weaver. She's the director of the Westport River Watershed Alliance. She also came out on the boat. That's a little picture of me. I'm like holding the data sheet. Looking very scientific, very citizen scientist. This is the data sheet over here. And so the terminology, E, egg, obviously, C, chick, P is pip, the little hole, which has a little tiny crack. The important part of understanding this is that we have to age them accurately because of the translocation project that we are doing with the University of Illinois. So, and also for tagging, for banding them. So we need to know when does that pip occur? You know, that helps us to discern when the eggs have hatched. And in 2019, our Westport project began supplying chicks to the University of Illinois project. And Dr. T. Van Ting has overseen that program since 2013. So I'll tell you a little bit more about that translocation project. I don't know how much that is talked about, but that's really one of the most interesting things of the project, and I think you would enjoy that if you volunteered. So here's, I don't know how much you can see of this, but this is a blackfish over here. I'm gonna play it again, and it was still trying to breathe. It wasn't breathing, obviously. So the fish are delivered to the nest by the male osprey after first he feeds himself a little tasty portion, usually the head. And that's important because he's using up a lot of energy because he's the one that is feeding the entire family, the female and the chicks. So he's just constantly hunting and bringing back. And you'll hear, if you're out on the river, you'll hear that screeching and calling from the female, saying, you know, where the heck are you? I'm hungry. The kids are starving. Bring us something to eat. And he does eventually. And once delivered, something also that's interesting, people would ask me, like, well, do they chew it up and spit it into their mouth, or like, how does that work? No, she will rip off a piece of the flesh and then just feed it very gently and delicately to the little chick. And it's so fascinating because her, you know, talons are like this, and there's these little fragile chicks, but she knows how to do it. And then she'll take a piece for herself. So it's one for me, and two for you, and two for you, and one for me.
I'm trying to follow this. Where is the fish?
Where is the fish? The fish is right here. And I apologize for the quality of my machine is not the best, but I'll show, I'll play it one more time. And it is moving, but I don't know if the quality's good enough for you to see here. So this is Matt again. He does a lot of trash removal as well. If he sees a plastic bag or something in the river, he will take that and get rid of it. And we're off again. This is Alexa. She was an intern from the University of Maine. This was her first trip out on the boat with us. She was really excited to be there. It was really fun to be with these young, enthusiastic scientists, I have to say. And they were all really kind to me. But Alexa did not bring her boots that day. And if Alexa was here, I'd apologize to her. I'm very sorry. Matt, if you see her, please don't tell her that I have those photographs in my slideshow. But she was great, and she was a good sport, and she knows. She's actually read that section. And, you know, this was a memorable day because it started out pretty well. I mean, it started out nicely. But then we started to find a lot of struggling chicks in the nests. And ones that were, you know, there were a couple that were dead or dying. I found one with like the tongue kind of like that, kind of hanging out of the mouth, and he was, or she was kind of at the back of the nest. And it was distressing. And then we came around a bend in the river, and Alexa shouted that she saw something floating in the distance, and she said, oh no, I think that's a dead osprey. And it was. And so it was a male, and it had been tangled up in fishing line. And it was really sad. It was really gut-wrenching to find that, because we're spending all these weeks out on the river seeing these majestic creatures flying overhead, and then because of human, whatever, carelessness, I don't know what you want to call it, it saw what it thought was a fish, but it was a lure, and it got tangled up. And then we think it kept trying to fly up, and it got more and more entangled. The sad thing, too, was that when Matt checked the data for that nest, the week before, there had been 2 eggs in the nest. So not only was there a dead male osprey, we could tell it was a male, but the female was nowhere in sight, and the eggs were gone. So I don't know, how do you make sense of that? It was, for me, it was traumatic. It really was. Here you see Matt is trying to pull that fishing line, goes way, way out. He couldn't dislodge it. He ended up cutting it. And
Excuse me, was the last one in the middle of the nest go over the previous screen in the middle?
Oh.
Not this one, go on.
you want me to go back?
Please
Okay.
go back.
Sure.
Now, right in the middle there.
Yes.
Looks like a round thing, so did the nest topple over?
No, the osprey, that's just kind of seaweed or something that landed on top of the osprey. No, the nest was intact. The nest was right here, and the osprey was right next to the nest in the water. And you'll see in a minute, you can even see a better slide. This is what the osprey looked like entangled in that fishing lure. And we had to go back. Gina asked us to return and get the fishing lure and bring it back to the field station. So Matt had the job of trying to cut through that fishing line to get the lure out, and he actually had to remove some of the talons. And the talons, this was another interesting thing. They almost look like lobster claws, right, or something. And the black is made out of keratin. That's like made out of our fingernails. But underneath that black is the actual talon, the structure of the talon. And it took him, I don't know, he said, I don't know if you remember saying this, but he said when he came back to the boat, it was like performing major surgery. That's what he said. Yeah, it was pretty intense. So, happier day. This is Elijah. He was another part-time seasonal employee for Mass Audubon. And then finally, the boat trip. Next time out, I had the privilege of banding with Dr. Alan Poole, and I was really excited about that. I had asked Matt and Gina, but mostly Matt, if that could be possible, because I knew at this point that I was writing this book and that he would have some stories to tell, and he did. I'm not going to share with you today some of the stories, but that's Matt. That's Alan. We had to pick him up on his boat because he slept out on his boat the night before in the rain. And that kind of sounds like Alan, I guess, if you know him. He's like, for me, a cross between Indiana Jones and Crocodile Dundee. He is just like this outdoor guy who, that's where he lives. That's his natural place. So as we were going out, Matt had told me that when he and the volunteers were checking this the week before, that there were some chicks who, again, had perished. So we were really kind of dwindling down at this point. I really wanted to abandon Osprey, but I also felt really sad that they were perishing. So in a minute, I'm going to give you a banding demonstration. Actually, I think I'm just going to go ahead to that, because looking at the time, I don't think I'll have enough time to read you a little bit about my book, but you can read what it was like, or you can talk to our friend in the audience about what it was like to walk through the marshes in bare feet. This is the part of the passage. So this is what the bands look like in case you've never seen one before. They're official. Matt's doing some recording of data. And most of you might know this, but when you're banding them, they don't look like those cute little chicks that I showed you a picture of a couple weeks earlier when we were out on the boat. They're almost full grown. So let's see here. A full-grown osprey, and here they are, has a 66-inch wingspread, so a wingspan. So that's, for me, fingertip to fingertip. I measured it. That's big, right? And razor-sharp talons plus a beak that can shred fish. So, I don't know, I think can be a little bit scary. I was not the person to retrieve the osprey from the nest. Those were trained professionals who did that, Matt or Gina. So now I'm going to give you a demonstration of the banding process. I'm going to have to put the microphone down. I think you can hear me. Can you hear me okay without it? Okay, sort of. So I need a volunteer from the audience, hopefully a male volunteer, I was lucky enough to secure an osprey. You want to come on up, sir? So. And what is your name?
Philip.
Philip?
Philip.
Philip, this is Philip. He's going to help me band the osprey.
Oh, great.
Okay. So you're going to be me. Was my job. So this is what they use to hold the osprey, to keep it kind of feeling secure. So you can see it. Did I do a good job at that, Matt? I know. Found it at Joanne Fabric. I know. So you're going to hold it like this. Yep. And so what we do, line up. So if I were Matt or Gina, I would be going over, and that would be the osprey in the nest. I would be climbing up the ladder. They're kind of flapping around. Gina corrected me and said we are going to grab it as if it's a loaf of bread. So I'm grabbing it like that and kind of tucking its arms in like that. And then I'm coming down the ladder. And then I'm coming over here. And I'm putting it head first into this little container. So, and then, right, this kind of Velcros, so be very careful. So we don't want to squeeze it. I'm going to have you holding right here, yeah? Right there, not too tight. Because if you hold it too tight, it could regurgitate and die. So this is what we use in second. First, we're going to weigh the osprey. So we weighed all of them. So I'll put this here. Like that. And that like that. And when I say let go, you're going to let go. Okay. And can you read how much that osprey weighs?
It's not coming up.
Can you read that
Yeah,
right there?
1 to 2 pounds approximately.
There you go. So we do that. We write that down, or we actually remember it. Then we sort of fold this back. And again, I'm Philip. I'm not Matt. So Matt is taking a tag, and he's wrapping it. It's like that picture I showed you, but I just kind of improvised. And then he kind of takes some pliers, and I'm making it look easier. But again, it's fast. You're doing it fast because the ospreys are stressed, and even the ones in the nest are stressed. So you kind of are just kind of a machine. So then, that's done. Thank you, Philip. And hold that again. We're going to try and get him out of there. Okay. And I'm going to take him, make sure his wings are down, kind of put him like this, and then go back over to the nest with his band on. With his band on. And then he's going to look at us like, what just happened? And that is it.
Yay.
Thank you, Phil. Thank you very much for your help. Okay. So that's my banding understanding. I'm sure it's a lot more complex than that, but that was what I understood. Okay, back to my microphone now. And you can see, their bag was green, but mine was white, but it's very similar. And here is them holding it. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. That makes a big difference with it out. And they get all fluffed up. And they're like, oh no. Here's Alan. And Matt is holding. Very cute. Oops. Back. Matt and Gina doing some weighing here. Dr. Tifan Ting, I had the opportunity to go out to dinner with her and Gina and Matt. I got to spend some time with her. She was telling us about the project in Illinois. So what she was worrying that the ospreys wouldn't come back to the nesting spot in Illinois. So let me explain a little bit about how this works. So basically, and you'll see the process in a couple more slides, but she is taking the ospreys by plane in a little box to Illinois when they are about 6 weeks old, 5 to 6 weeks old, before they fly. But when they're old enough to kind of take the flesh from the fish and self-feed. And so there's like a little window where we can get them to bring them over. What happens once they're in Illinois is they live in what's called a hack box. So a hack box is in the middle of a field. At least that's what it looked like when I looked it up. And there are lab techs that come and deliver fresh fish to those ospreys. There are 12 of them every year that we have transported. And those 12 chicks will live in their hack box. Maybe there are 2 hack boxes. I'm not sure how many are in each one. And they will eat, and they will start flapping their wings. because that's what birds do. Another thing that I learned was that the lab techs count the number of wing flaps. So every day she has her lab techs standing there counting how many times the osprey flaps the wings. And because in the beginning she just said, well, just tell me when you think they're ready, but that wasn't really working. So when they're sort of like upward to 200 flaps a day, 200, 250, 300, 350 flaps a day, that means that the birds are ready to fledge. So they let them out of the hack box and they can learn how to hunt or fish on their own. Now, they stay in Illinois for the rest of the summer, just like our ospreys chicks do. In the fall, they migrate somewhere. Maybe they go to Florida, maybe they go to South America. We don't know all the time, even if they're banded sometimes, we don't know how far they go. And then they stay there for 2 to 3 years till they reach sexual maturity. And once they reach sexual maturity, 2 to 3 years later, they fly back. Well, why aren't they flying back to Westport? Anybody? I'll tell you why. Oh, I know something they don't know. Or probably they know, but you're just making me feel good. They got a landscape while they were fishing of the landscape in Illinois. They didn't fledge in Westport. They don't know the Westport River. All they saw when they were in Westport was a nest. And their mom or their dad coming to, they didn't fledge from there. They just were in the nest. So Dr. Ting told us that for the first time, 2 of our Westport ospreys made it back to Illinois. So the project is working, yeah, and that's out of 60. So we have delivered 60 so far, 12 a year, 5 years. And they have seen some success. So that's really exciting. I think that's exciting from an environmental point of view, and it just made everybody feel good. And she was really very praising our volunteer efforts and just really excited to tell us that. So let's see, where are we? This is Translocation Day. A few minutes earlier, it was pouring rain and lightning. I don't know if you remember that, Dick. That day, it was severe storms, and the plane had already landed. Everybody was all in place. Matt had already done the 5-page translocation pickup plan, and everybody was stationed, but it was pouring rain. Somehow it stopped. I don't know. The clouds lifted, and this is Dick on his boat with Alexa. Here's a little bit of, this is like a tiny excerpt of the plan. It is like a minute to minute. And again, why? Because we're trying to not stress the birds. We don't want them to be stressed, so we want to get them in and out as quickly as possible because they're going to be spending all those hours on the plane. So that's Alexa and Dick Manchester going to pick up the chick from Matt and Gina. This is the back of my car. One of my assignments was to take the chick. I think this looks kind of like a Chinese food box or something, but there are chicks in here. And Gina had told us the night before to put the tarp all the way up on our car because ospreys, when they're stressed, can poop at their enemies. That's like their one of the few defense mechanisms that they have. I was wondering if anyone here has ever smelled osprey poop inside their car? No? It's indescribable. And I was driving very slowly because I had 3 ospreys in the back and I had all the windows down and I was gagging. It was really gross. But I was glad for the tarp. This is waiting at the field station, so there were like 3 people here, 3 there, 3 there, then everybody kind of gathers, and then we drive them up to the airport. So you would never believe it. Like, look at that sky. It kind of cleared up like New England does, and it was beautiful. So, okay, well, here we are. Harold and Judy Isaacson, some of you might know them. They were here my last presentation that I gave. And this was kind of their first flight. Also, note the inside of the plane also covered in plastic. Someone knew what they were doing. I thought it looked like a scene from, I don't know if you remember Dexter, the movie, before he would like kill people. He would like coat everything with plastic. That's what it looked like. So there is Dr. Ting in this tiny little cabin with 12 chicks that could be pooping. At one point I thought, I even asked Gina, hey Gina, that would be fun, maybe for like part of the book research, I could like go on the plane with her. No, I'm really glad that did not work. So here's a photo, this actually a photo I took. The Westport Osprey Project hit some milestones. Some more photographs from the summer. And then I'm going to just play this for you for a minute, just a little transition. So this book, the book that I wrote and this presentation for me is a lot more about than just ospreys. It's about art and community and the environment, and because I'm a therapist, it's about that too. That's one of the neat things about being a social worker is we look at systems. And it was difficult toward the end of writing it to continue writing it and to spend all that time in nature and with all these young scientists who were tasked with protecting and collecting data without paying attention to the environment too. And so I didn't really imagine how much it was going to matter till it really did start to matter, that I knew I needed to do some more research and some more thinking about the environment and about climate change and about all this stuff. So I started to think about what might the most important things that we could do now to help our Earth, to help protect our all the environments where our wild things live. And so, I'm going to take off my birding hat and put on my trauma therapist hat for a minute, and I'm going to want one more volunteer from the audience. This time I'm going to ask for a woman volunteer, because for the research for the book, I did actually do a therapy intake session with someone who has experienced the traumatic impact of climate change firsthand. And I have a transcript of it that we're going to do. It'll only take a couple minutes because we're almost done. So I'm wondering if there is somebody who, I don't know, maybe once was up for an Academy Award, a woman, or someone who likes to do theater, someone who feels comfortable reading from a script. It's only a page. I'll give you a minute to sort of prepare your script while we set up the chair. So anybody interested in doing that? Yes, thank you. Come on up. For this, we will need the lights on. It's a little wrinkly. I do need her. What is your name?
Joanna.
Hi, Joanna. Thank you for volunteering. So we're going to sit in chairs over here, but I'm going to have you, just don't say who you are yet. You're going to be the yellow, and I'm going to be me. Okay? So while she's reading the script and getting ready to emote, I'm going to do this for you. And you can have a seat. Oops. Whoop. Ooh. Gosh.
Oh, I guess I have to come this way.
There.
I
Yep.
don't want to get tangled in.
I know. Hold on. It's hard to do this with a microphone. I'll be right with you.
You're on camera.
That's all right. I'm on camera. Somebody can see what I'm doing. So, in case you haven't guessed, this is our therapy client. It's Mother Earth. Let me give you this to hang on to as a prop. So it's on the front and the back, you can tell. Up. I'm going to try and hold this. Hey. Well, hello. I'm so happy to finally meet you. First, a few basic questions to get out of the way. Can you tell me your birth date, if you don't mind me asking? How old are you again?
People always forget. I'm about 4.54 billion years old, give or take.
Wow, I didn't realize that. I've never treated anyone in your age group before. Let's see, do you have any existing family or support systems nearby? Like, I don't know, Mars, Venus, haha.
No, no one close by. Do you think that's funny?
I'm sorry, sometimes I joke when I'm nervous. Okay, how many people are living with you in your household right now?
Now I'd say about 8 billion. It's a lot.
Wow, that is a lot. So I need to ask this next question for my intake form. It's a bit sensitive. Have you ever now or in the past been in an abusive relationship or experienced any trauma?
Let's see. How about being poisoned by plastics, pollution, and chemical runoff? Does that count? Or maybe you're referring to having acres upon acres of trees ripped out by disforestation? Greenhouse gases, anyone? What about losing between 10,000 to 100,000 species a year to extinction? Or possibly,
Whoa, okay, wow. You sound kind of angry. I'm going to mark that as a yes. Lastly, tell me, what are you hoping to get out of therapy?
to be honest, I'm feeling very distressed. My system is off. I've tried to adjust, but it's just not working. I can't keep up. I'm overwhelmed, exhausted, and depleted. To be honest, I'm a hot mess. I need help.
That sounds awful. Well, how long would you say this has been going on?
Oh, not too long, maybe like the last couple of 100 years.
Okay. Well, go on.
Well, I'm sick of it. People don't care. They think I have endless resources. They treat me like garbage. I need a break. Some days it makes me sad, but lots of times I wake up feeling so frustrated and angry.
Let's see. It's awful. How are you coping with all that?
Coping? Pretty obvious, isn't it? Remember Sandy, Katrina?
Oh, you mean,
I've been trying to show them, but
It must seem like no one is listening.
That's because they're not listening. Well, maybe a few of them are. Like that Greta something, a young human. She's working hard. The scientists, advocacy groups, the kids get it, but not enough people are getting it, not even close.
Wow, that is a pretty big problem. I'm not sure I can.
I knew it. It's useless. I figured as much.
Wait, let me think a minute. What if we could get more people to listen? What if we could get more folks to come up with ideas and actions together? And put in more work and a little more time. Would that help? Would that even begin to help heal you?
That would be wonderful. You know, I love them so much. It's just, I'm not sure how much longer I can keep going like this. I'm reaching my breaking point.
Wow, I'm so sorry for all that we've done to you. You didn't deserve it. You've been working so hard. Let's try to come up with a plan together, okay?
Okay, thank you for listening. It means a lot.
Thank you. Yeah, great job. Great job, right?
And the Oscar goes to Mother Earth.
Yeah. So, I know, that I always get a little choked up when I do that role play. Because I'm an empath. Probably some of you are too. So, as a social worker, we always do treatment plans. This is one I came up with. It's pretty simple. And it's just talking about having people talk about climate change in a different way. Upwards of 2/3 of all Americans in a recent survey conducted by the Yale Program on Climate Change state that they rarely or never discuss the climate crisis with family or friends. That's probably not the people in this room, but it could be some of you, or it could be some of your friends or relatives. And I'm just hoping that this talk can inspire you to talk about it a little bit. When people start talking about climate change and action, it helps them not feel distressed or alone. It nudges them towards community and towards accountability. I talk about a lot more in the book about how to do that if you're nervous about it. But those are the 3 questions that I came up with. What do you think is happening to the environment? What are you doing to help? Because we're all doing something. And is there something more we can do together? So I just wanted you to take a minute and think about those things. And I don't know, raise your hand if you think you could have that conversation with somebody in your life this week, a friend or just maybe talk about the talk that you went to. Thank you. That would be great. If people take that away as a takeaway, even more than learning about ospreys, that's why we're all here tonight, because we're in it together. So, definition of a therapist: individual specializing in the treatment of impairment, injury, disease, or disorder. How hard would it be for us to imagine ourselves as therapists for the environment, and then asking ourselves every day, every week, what am I doing to help treat our Mother Earth today? And so I'm going to end on this note. This is a little drawing of Mother Earth. You saw her on my little, beach ball. That's a Mother Earth beach ball, believe it or not. And let's see, I think what I want to do, I'm going to do acknowledgments next and then take a few questions. Anybody here who is in the book, if they could stand up for applause from me. Thank you for letting me write about you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your contribution in letting me write. Yeah. Okay, so now we can have the lights on, I think, and you guys could have stood up too. There you go. Okay, questions?
You
Betty?
can add to trauma climbing up to bend an osprey. Next time you ask, that's what I'm gonna say.
You could. I'll tell you, it's pretty traumatized to see the dead osprey though.
Yeah.
I asked Matt, I was seeing dead ospreys in the water
Yeah.
after. He's like, yeah, you have PTSD from that whole thing. Do you remember that, Matt? Probably does, yeah. Other questions? Yeah?
How do you pick chicks?
How do they
to
pick?
go to, was it Illinois? Yeah, how do you?
How do we pick them? Matt, do you want to answer that one? Because Matt is the one who went around to each nest the day before, or the week before and selected, so.
So first we have to pick a day that we do the translocation, and on that day, we need to select 12 chicks that are roughly 42 days old. And if there are more than 12 that are around that age, we prioritize nests that are close together to make the procedure quicker. So usually there are more than 12 options, but we have to be strategic. So yeah, 42 days old.
Okay, we can just,
So we try to prioritize nests that have more than just one chick, because if we remove a chick from a one chick nest, then now that's an empty nest for the parents to return to. So if we are choosing from a multi-chick nest, we try and select a healthier one, not the one that might go to Illinois and then die because it's malnourished in Westport. Yeah.
any other questions? We have time for maybe just one or two more.
It's for Matt, I think. What about the male-female combination? Do you know that you're picking males or females?
We don't sex the birds when they're juveniles.
What if
It's
you take
usually hard to tell.
12 females to Illinois?
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit.
Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
So we try to send more males. The higher proportion of males that go to Illinois, the better, because the males stay closer to home when they return. When they fly back to breed, they're going to stay closer to their fledge site, whereas females generally roam away from their fledge site because otherwise the siblings could end up pairing up together, and so it's hardwired into the females to roam away from their fledge sites and males to return to their fledge sites. And so we want, in order to recolonize, repopulate Illinois with osprey, we want males. They'll lure in the females. Once the males are there making sounds or, whatever, the females will stop in and say, oh, okay, this will do. The hard part, to Matt's point, is that we can't genetically sex them. The best metric we have is their weight. Because females are larger, they're egg carriers, they are a bigger bird. They're gonna weigh sometimes, 1,800 grams versus 12 or 1,300 grams for a male. So that's the best way we have to separate. And we tend to be about 60% accurate. Because there's big males and small females in the mix. So does that answer?
Yes, that's great. Can I just add one more question? So when they're in Illinois and they fledge, and then they go south, and they're gone for 2 years, are those males pairing up with females down south?
No.
No, okay.
They are flying solo and flying back solo, as far as we know. That's as far as what we know. And then, but there's enough movement and, I don't know how many of you use the Merlin app, and do you use it at night? come back to its,
So what you're saying is all the birds you band are blue,
yeah, blue and white,
So-
yeah. And we don't
Yeah.
ban that many with the color ban.
but another area might be red or pink?
Correct.
Okay, okay.
Okay, we've got to wind up. We've got to, the library closes in 15 minutes. I just wanted to say, some of Pam's paintings are for sale over here, and some have been sold already. Some of the Van Dusen prints are also for sale. A couple of them have been sold. The sign that was up there disappeared. Somehow somebody maybe took my phone number and took the sheet home instead of leaving the sheet. The bigger prints are $150, smaller ones are $100. If anybody's interested, you just have to get in touch with me, and if you're interested, why, I'll give you a phone number. But anyway, they'll be here until the 30th. We'll take the exhibits down, and we'll keep the paintings here until then. But I want to thank Pam very much for this final talk. And she's back in the back of the books.
And please,
And sign up for volunteer.
Yeah, if anyone is interested in volunteering, you can put your name and email on a sheet of paper, and I can reach out to you with details.
Okay. Thank you all.
Thank you, Betty.